Hello everyone, my name is Becca and welcome to Yellow Cat Studios. For today's video, I'm actually gonna make a thing again. So I'm planning on going to the Medieval Fair in High River at the end of June, and I wanted to make myself a little belt bag. So I have actually tried making one before, but I didn't really like how it turned out. So I have drawn a new sort of pattern. So this is basically what I've got going on. I just kind of looked at pictures of belt bags on Pinterest and decided on a sort of shape that I wanted. I also used my phone as a kind of reference for size. But this is my main piece. I would need two of these. And then this one will be the kind of flap over top. I could do this where the back of the bag is this one big piece and have it fold over. I would just need to add a little bit of space in there because I do need a strip of fabric around the side. Now that I've said that out loud, I do need to add a little bit of length to this either way, just so that the bag sits nice when this comes over it. So before I kind of figure out how I want to do the back and the flap here, I'm just gonna measure around the edge of my main piece to see how long of a strip I will need to go around and act as the sides and the bottom of the bag. Okay, so I did a bunch of figuring out off camera to figure out all of my pattern pieces. And I think I have it all together, so I'm gonna kind of talk through them and hopefully it makes sense. So this is the same. This is gonna be my bag front. I didn't draw in seam allowance for it, so I will just cut seam allowance when I cut out my fabric. Bag back, I drew a separate piece for it just so that I could figure out where I wanted my belt loops to be. Now you could do this a couple different ways. You could have it where the belt loops come up and are visible on the belt and the bag kind of hangs down lower. I wanted to do it this way with the belt loops on the back because I'm going to add some D-rings and I wanted them to be kind of hidden when I had it on a belt, but then also have the option to use this as a crossbody bag. So that's why I decided to put my belt loops flush on the back instead of coming up on the back of the bag. And then I added some length to this flap piece. I don't know what to call it. Again, I didn't add seam allowance to this. I'm gonna cut this after these pieces so I can figure out how much I need to cut. This is for the sides and the bottom. So I didn't have a long enough piece of paper, so I've just got it half of the length that I need, and I will cut it on fold. And then this will go around the sides and bottom of the bag. I did draw seam allowance into this one, so I don't need to cut any extra width. And then, of course, a little piece for the belt loops. I didn't add seam allowance to the width here because I am going to be using leather, so I don't need to kind of hem these edges. So this can just be raw. I did add length here so that I can fold them over and sew them onto the bag. And I think that's it for pattern pieces. Now, if that didn't make sense, I'm gonna show how I cut everything out and piece it together. So hopefully that kind of helps.
So here I am just marking out a 1/2 inch of seam allowance around my pattern pieces, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out.
Okay, so all of my pieces are cut and I've kind of had to do some figuring out how to actually put them together. So what I've got going on right now, so I have my back piece, my like flap, and my side piece just kind of clipped together. What has happened is I didn't account for the seam allowance that I added to my back and front pieces, and my side piece didn't go all the way around. So I needed to add about a 1/2 inch extra. But because I don't want to cut another piece, I've just kind of shifted where I'm going to attach it. And I'm going to sew the flap onto the back piece just a little bit lower so that it kind of covers any gap that I'm going to have from where I'm sewing the side piece on. Yeah. So I had added a 1/2 inch of seam allowance to my back and front pieces. Probably much more than I needed, but that's what I always do. So I think to start, I'm gonna sew the side piece to the back, and then that'll give me where I need to sew the flap together. And I am sewing the back side, and when I get there, the front piece wrong sides together because I want to add a trim as sort of like a bias tape around the outer edges. And then with the flap piece, I'm gonna sew it right sides together. Had to think about that. Right sides together so that it's just a clean hidden seam on that one. Yeah. So I'm gonna sew this part and see how that goes. Okay, so sewing these little curved corners sucked, and I just kind of forced it to go. It looks nice on the inside, but I've got a little bit of unevenness and rippling on the outside, but it should be fine because, like I said, I'm going to cover this edge with ribbon. However, it did push this up, so now they're uneven. So I just seam ripped a little bit, and I'm going to trim that excess off, and that should be fine. So my next step is actually going to be putting the belt loops and the flap on. Because of where I'm sewing the flap on, I'm going to sandwich the belt loops in between. So what I'm going to do, this is my back piece, this is the belt loop. Gonna put them on like that, and then the flap on top, and sew them all together.
So I got my belt loops sewn on, they look great. definitely forgot to put my D-rings on there when I did that, so I have to do some seam ripping and re-sewing to get those put on there. Now I have my front piece clipped onto the bag, and I'm just gonna sew around the edges there. And I am realizing that it was much easier to sew it after I took all the clips off, so that's what I did here.
Okay, so I've got the bag basically together. So what I'm gonna do is trim down the front and back here, just so everything kind of lines up nicely. And I'm waiting on my ribbon, so I can't do the edges yet, but I think what I'm gonna do is go around the entire back piece here and then go around the front. I am gonna trim down, well, maybe, we'll see. I might trim down my excess here just to make that a little bit neater. So the other thing I need to do is figure out what I want to do for the closure. If I want to do like a snap or a button or some sort of loop thing, but that's how we're looking so far. So I finally got my ribbon in. It came in a few different colors, but I'm just going with the brown one to keep the bag fairly neutral. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it and fold it over the edge, all along my seams to hide those raw edges.
With sewing this trim on, I started with using the same thread that I used for the rest of the bag, but that did not work, so I switched to a thinner thread and my machine liked that much better. I also didn't pin this on at all, I just kind of folded it over the edge and placed it as I went. I found this really cute and on-theme button in my little button stash, so I just hand sewed that one on there. And then for the little loop closure, I had some random like suede cording, and I just hand sewed that on a little bit. I did also go in and use some strong fabric glue just because I couldn't get a lot of it stitched down, so I thought the glue would help.
that is the bag done. I'm super happy with it. I think this trim is super pretty. It's not perfect. There's some spots that I could have sewn it down a little bit nicer, but I think it looks really nice, and I just happen to have this little button. Works very well for that, and it fits on my belt, and I'm very happy with it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed getting back to just sitting and making a project. If you did enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe to my channel. I do stuff like this fairly often. But yeah, that's it. I hope you have a good day, afternoon, or evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.